friend was also involved with some of the turtle choices, and um, it's funny because I told Megan, my wife, I said something like, "Hey, um, David's significant other wanted an animal," and she's like, "Well, yeah, I told you what I want. Um, I want a snake neck turtle." So I I I had totally forgotten about that, and I think it's the most funny thing ever in the world. But
All right, it's
we need
time.
to
Gotta start
need
setting
to
it up.
find a Chalanida expert, and that would be super awesome.
Yeah, we'll find one. I've got a few names right off the top of my head. I don't know, they're more Zoo World folk, but um, yeah, we can find some folk, I'm sure. That
I
way
have
you can
a
work
feeling
towards
that
getting your animals.
yeah, I have a feeling that there's a delay or something like that because I'm now just starting to see uh, us on on my iPad. So apologies if
Oh
we had
wow.
difficulties, but we are on, Ralph. We are here, and hopefully you can see us now. So um, there's a person that is a Turtle Room affiliate. His name is Scott Hendrickson, I believe. I don't know if you've ever heard that name,
Name sounds familiar.
but I sent him some Kalanida. I think that's how you say it. Or no, I didn't send him that. I sent him Kinixis homiana, and then he was telling me he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a snake neck guy." So actually, he would be the guy. So hopefully you can hear us now. Hopefully we're on. Let us know your ideas for the Let's Talk Turtles podcast. Would you like to be on the podcast? What would you like to talk about? What would you like to see Ryan and I talk about? What guests? What topics? We've talked a lot about turtle husbandry, but you and Rebecca did several episodes that were really just interesting facts about different turtles.
Yeah, and episode number one, what is a turtle?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Everyone
right.
know that was a long one. That was a good one.
Yeah,
I really like we did one on turtle mythology and kind of like some of the famous mythological turtle and tortoise figures, and that was a really fun one to do. That was all her. I think we'd want to do another one at some point, so we'll
well,
sneak one of those in there again.
yeah. And Rebecca may be on from time to time, right?
Yep, yep. It's totally dependent on how she's feeling. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you. I
But
don't
she
know.
thinks I replaced her,
Yeah,
so I was like, well, little.
it's all my fault.
Yeah, she was unreliable as a co-host. So
Oh, it I was thinking of like what would it be like if the four of us were on together, and just think of the party our children could have.
oh my
Especially if
god.
we were all in the same place. That would be fun.
I again, you just hope to keep hearing noise.
Yeah.
All right, I
So
keep hearing noise, so they're good.
yeah. Okay, so we've got up to 6 people, so we must be being broadcast live at least now. So, hey, guys, we
Yeah.
want to know what would you like to see on Let's Talk Turtles podcast? Do you have any particular guests or topics you'd like us to cover? Yeah, let us know in the comments. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you want to hear.
Yeah, we're game. I'm ready to talk about anything. I mean, we've still got a couple lined up, but we need to keep them lined up. And I mean, I'm very good at finding someone to talk with and get episodes out. But I really want, like Tom is saying, we want to be engaged with you all as people who are listening and make sure we provide some content that you really want. You know. Um, so yeah, the more feedback we get, the better. Please, and if you what's helpful as well is if you join the Let's Talk Turtles podcast Facebook group. I'll share a lot on there. Tom's on there all the time, and we can have discussions there that lead to questions answered on the podcast or new guests coming in or topics to discuss. So there's so many topics to discuss with turtles that we'll never run out. But let us know, like, what would you? Is there one you don't want us to do? Oh my gosh, because we'll do it.
Yeah, preservation or
Right.
conservation?
Yeah. It's
So
all good.
Podrick has joined us. Dragon Lair. Podrick is down in the Alabama area, if memory serves. So, Podrick, hope you are doing well and healing up. So, he keeps, I think, marginateds and a few other different species. He and I have talked over the years. He tried keeping some Homiana outside in Alabama, and they just did not do well down there. I think Holmes hingebacks are a forest dwelling species in a hot tropical place, but they're taking advantage of microclimates. So
Yeah.
they can be a hot weather can be kind of tough on them. So
What's the thing, Tom? What's getting them outside?
say that again.
The Homiana. What's getting them there? What's the issue with the Homiana outside?
I don't know. I mean, I personally, I think they're a crepuscular species that bury underground when it gets hot and dry, and they come out when it rains or after a rain, kind of like a box turtle. Um, I don't think they're out in the day too much, and so I think they just have a hard time adapting to our kind of continental climate. These really hot days and cooler nights. Um, but ultimately, we don't know. Um, I have a tortoise that is a little tortoise. Literally, I call it little guy, and so I'm thinking about having him outside or her to see if they might do well. So Podrick says he thinks mine were never established to start with. They barely ate anything, and absolutely, that is totally the case. You got to get them eating, and it's just challenging all around. So
I've been lucky. I have not had to establish any imports, but that is the general consensus from everybody is that they're not easy to establish. They take not that anyone wasn't trying things appropriately, but they're just the success rate's very low with imported Homiana in particular. That's why it's important to go through folks who are captive breeding and
yep,
pick their brains and source your animals a little differently if you can.
yeah, absolutely. It's very tough. I have my group. Um, some from came from the Turtle Survival Alliance. They've been in captivity since 2014, but they went through a barrage, let's say, of medical treatment. So they're doing well now, though. They've produced a lot of animals. So.
Heck yeah,
Uh,
man.
Podrick says Podrick retracted his message. So, um, but yeah, thanks guys for joining us. We've got Ryan tonight. We're talking about the Let's Talk Turtles podcast. We released a new episode this morning, so be sure to listen. It was with David Kelly, and David is building an interesting collection of tortoises. He talks about pancakes, Egyptian tortoises that he got from Ralph Till. He's starting with one marginated tortoise. And then what was the first thing? I'm forgetting one of them.
You got the Russian
Oh
tortoise.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
That's
start
what started it.
a group of Russian tortoises. Um, we're talking about the subspecies of Russian tortoises, right? And I think you made a really good point. I tend to be probably a little bit too anal and apply more my day job, what I do in my day job, to what I do for a for fun, right? And um, as far as I know, nobody is really, except Matthew, is figuring out what subspecies they have of Russian tortoise. I mean, this is just like a brand new thing people are even realizing.
Yeah, and that wasn't any digs at you, Tom. That I
Yeah,
do the same thing.
I
I
know.
go back and forth because I also, at heart, I'm more of a purist, and I
Yeah,
want to know. And you have that knowledge of wanting to know, and then you have to kind of reconcile with yourself sometimes. Well, it is important because those will be specific bloodlines, but
yeah,
it also kind of isn't because you're
Yeah,
not reestablishing this line back in its habitat. It's not happening as
yeah,
much as you might think you might, but
yeah.
it's
No,
just not. So it
yeah,
is okay to breed different subspecies
yeah,
together and create. We need captive bred Russian tortoises.
exactly.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Patrick, what's his name? I'm sorry.
yeah,
There's we chatted on there. There are 5 subspecies extant
yeah,
and 1 extinct subspecies.
yeah. So that's just
Crazy.
it blows my mind. Oh, Matthew, you came just at the time we were talking subspecies of Russian tortoises, aka the Horsfield's tortoises. So, uh, Matthew joined me last week, and we talked reptile shows. And Russian tortoises are certainly one of those tortoises you're going to find at reptile shows quite a bit. So, um,
We were talking about
yeah,
that. Oh, sorry. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Go ahead.
One thing I was thinking, and not to, I'm thinking about with the TTPG. I wonder if there's like a group of us or the people that can some like species of highlight or like these are animals that need work. Highlight those species. Things so like going to the show. What are the common turtles and tortoises you see that are obvious imports? One that strikes me. I mean, Russians obviously.
Yeah,
Holmes hinchbacks. There's. I mean, for now, they're probably. I would imagine their imports may stop at some point. Another genus though that is just terribly imported and not much work. Rhinoclemys, a species that really like the Central American wood turtles. That's something if I had more space, I'd love. But yeah, what other species are you guys seeing at those shows that need to be worked with?
yeah. We'll throw that out there. Um,
Yep.
I know one of the ones that I've seen recently in the past year, and that's Greek tortoises.
Yeah.
Um, we had those influx of Libyan tortoises that came through Egypt, and approximately I think just under 1,000 of those have been imported, and yeah, a lot of just interesting looking Greek tortoises that are probably terrestrial, that are on the marketplace. Um, I watch Underground Reptiles often just to see what they're bringing in, so I know what I'm going to see. The jobbers have.
Good
So
idea.
yeah, Hermans,
Yeah,
Greeks.
Easter Hermans is a good one. One that I think used to be a little more common that I don't see anymore are twist necks, the platemies.
Yeah,
Those are really cool little turtles that another species. I just wish I had more room and time because I would love to work with them as well.
they're awesome. We had a talk from our keynote speaker, whose name is Stephen Etmar. I think. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that was our keynote, and he works with them.
That is cool. I've never seen one in person either. If you're talking
Yeah,
about
no,
the platemies,
I
um,
had this reptile book that had really cool illustrations, and I didn't get rid of that book. It's in my parents' house somewhere, but man, it just had the coolest drawing, like a
oh, that's
scientific
cool.
illustration of a platymies, the twist neck turtles. It was just stunning. I mean, obviously, it was just a drawing, but you know,
But
we used
there's
to get
something
excited about
perfect about them.
drawings back in the day. So
Yeah, well, I still do. If you're flipping through and you see some of those scientific etchings and
yeah,
drawings and sketches, like if they're well done, especially even if they're not like great, if they're just good, it's really transports you back to that time and kind of it makes me love turtles even more when I
yeah,
see those things. I don't know if that connects for people, but definitely it kind of transports me into their shoes and makes me think of a simpler time. And
yeah.
tortoises are kind of simple in that
Yeah.
regard. And
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple comments in the comments about the African side neck species. So
mm,
Pelusios
yeah,
and Alo Medusa.
yeah,
Um, yeah, Mark says I'm told twist necks are pet store turtles. Yeah, maybe 20 years ago they were, Mark, but
they're hard to find now.
yeah. Uh, and actually, I've never seen one in person either. So I'm thinking maybe it was 40 years ago that they were really imported commonly. But the African mud turtles and the African side necks, they're a fascinating group. there's a few people that work with them. I always look to see if there's anything interesting in with the African side necks. The taxonomy, especially well, of both Pelusios and Medusa, it was mostly considered like one species. Many of those taxa, and they've just been split into, you know, literally dozens now of Pelusios and Medusa. So those are still really cool turtles. What we're getting here in the United States is from West Africa. Um, if they were allowed to ship us Kinixis no gooey, they would ship us Kinixis no gooey. But yeah, those are once those imports stop, people will care about those. But as long as they're imported in mass quantities, it's hard to get
Yeah.
any interested in those species.
Unfortunately, that comes down to like a lot of dollar values. It's
Yep.
value. Yeah, people will pay $100 for an imported Homiana, but
Yeah.
when someone puts in the quality work to produce a captive bred animal, and you want to pay $300 or $400 for one, trust me, it's well worth your time.
Yeah.
An investment to do so, but it's tough for someone to stomach that, right? So like a layperson to be like, okay, I'll pay
Yeah.
4 times the amount. Like, yeah, but you'll have an alive tortoise in a year.
Absolutely. Well, now that Matthew is here, I'm going to throw the question out again and just open up the invite to let us know who you would like to see us interview on Let's Talk Turtles. What are you interested in? What do you want to hear about? What do you want to learn? This is your opportunity to tell us. We don't have like 24 guests lined up. So we want to know who you would like us to talk to. Would you like us to talk to you? So let us know in the comments.
Yeah, and you have to let us know here because we're not listening outside of this.
Yeah,
It's only here.
yeah, yeah. This is it. This is it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
In the 80s and 90s, I mean, that's the golden age for a number of reasons.
yep. So many different reptiles, and of course, there were really no captive bred animals in the 80s and the early 90s. That was just not a thing yet. I mean, the farmed iguanas was about as close to captive bred that you could get back then.
Herpetoculture was around at that point, but it was fledgling as far
Yeah,
as compared to what it is today. There were importers and there were people producing things, but it was all in zoos for the most part. I mean, there were folks, but it wasn't like
yeah,
it is today. And like the mid 90s, early 90s, it's in my recollection is when you started seeing it skyrocket.
yeah. I mean, I remember when Reptiles magazine came out. I had the first issue, right? And so for me, that was when the uh, herpetoculture really became mainstream, sort of. When
Hmm. Yep.
the Reptiles magazine, I could go to my local grocery store and see that on the rack. So
Ooh,
okay,
glazed herp. That's
Matthew
an old
has
one.
some recommendations. So Rusty Reed, he is
Okay.
a snapping turtle guy, and that sounds great, Matthew. We definitely can get the hook up there. Jeff Kasparek, he is in Arizona. He does box turtles.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember talking to him about Florida's.
yep.
Bye, Rye.
And he's from Ohio, so he was born in Ohio, so he gets
Go.
um, Michael T. I would love to turn the microphone around and interview Michael and hear a little bit more about his story. I think there would be some really interesting, fascinating things to learn.
That feels inevitable,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
Yeah.
he's interviewed everyone else. So.
And he's wonderful to talk to. Like,
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely. Yeah, I think Michael and that's his job with the TTPG is really to make everybody feel welcome. And that's it's hard. It's
yeah.
a lot of
Well,
work.
he does it well. He does it
Yeah,
well.
he does it really well. Um, he's a great job. So Podrick says he used to drive to Miami to hand pick his herps, parrots, and small, unusual animals. Oh yeah, I can only imagine what those might have been.
A lot of
Um,
kinkajous and maybe South American possums. I see a lot. Those types of things are still pretty prevalent.
like, could you get a pangolin in the 80s?
Man, I think you could get anything in the 80s.
Ugh.
80s was a different time. Well, not anything. I think a couple people found out you can't get anything.
And let's face it, if you look at many species that we work with today, their importation to this country was not a legal importation. Um, but today, we have a lot of them captive bred. So
Yep,
that's
yep.
good. Um,
There are
yeah,
yeah. So there are great things about the hobby still. Like think about Kwangtung river turtles. Those that species is functionally extinct in the wild, and
yeah,
yet you can go buy a handful of them for 65 bucks a piece, and like that's incredible for a
yeah,
critically endangered turtle.
yeah.
It's unreal.
So I don't know the story of that turtle, but I was told, or I was listening to a podcast or watching a live like this, that the price of that animal like skyrocketed and a bunch of people started working with it, and then the market plunged because so many people were producing them, and now you see them for like $40. That's
Yeah.
really interesting.
I heard that same story. I wasn't involved in it. I really wasn't into keeping turtles at home at that point. But yeah, I've heard the same thing, and that a lot of people made investments, um, and we're like, okay, I'll pay like two, three, 4 grand for this turtle, and then 2 years later, the market had been flooded, and their
Yeah,
investment was gone.
I mean it's interesting that speculation happens in the turtle world, right? We're seeing it with the Egyptian tortoise. Um, I think
Pancakes.
back to the famous like Dutch tulip debacle or something like that when tulips were in vogue in the 1600s and people were selling, like everybody wanted the best tulip bulbs and they were selling them for ridiculous prices. People were investing in tulips and then it just crashed. And I kind of feel like going into this recession, I'm starting to hear people talk about that, especially in the snake and ball python world.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
'Cause-
a lot of talk in the ball python world, but I think honestly, I don't know. I don't keep ball pythons, but I think that's just part of the cycle. I think
yeah,
it's that there are ebbs and flows in that, and I don't think anything's crashing. I think that things
yeah,
are starting to normalize after COVID, and because I mean, if you breed and sell reptiles, you did really well through COVID. There's a
yeah.
lot of interest and a lot of money, and people were just yeah, it was a different time, and
We bought
prices went
two
sky
bearded
high.
dragons. We weren't planning on buying.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. There's nothing wrong with that. But
Yeah,
the market adjusted because the demand was high,
yeah,
and then it's just I think it's just resettling right now.
yeah,
Now that's coming from somebody who's not horribly invested into the entire economics
yeah.
of the pyramid scheme snake stuff, but
Huh.
I just it's resetting.
Well, I wonder if there's anybody out there, like in academia, that studies the reptile market. That would be really interesting. I kind of doubt it, but man, wouldn't it be cool to bring on an economist that has maybe
Yeah.
studied, maybe even just the broader captive animal market? It just that would be some fascinating information. So, well, guys, we're almost out of time. So, if you have any last minute ideas, let us know. Um, Podrick says that he is frustrated essentially that all the marginated tortoises are coming out males. So, he needs some females. So, um, well, last one he found was 900 bucks, he says. So, if you have a female marginated tortoise, Podrick, Podrick is looking for one. So, um, well, I've had a blast doing the Let's Talk Turtles podcast. I really thank you for welcoming me on. Give my apologies to Rebecca. Uh,
Nothing there. Nothing to apologize for, Tom.
and so, look, so we're publishing it on Wednesday mornings.
Yep. Right now, it's about every other week.
And about every other week. So, If you think of any ideas, go on to Facebook, go on the Let's Talk Turtles Facebook group, join that group, and let's continue the conversation after the podcast is over on Facebook. So
Yeah.
okay, well, Ryan, I'll let you go. Have a great evening. Good talking to you, and I'll see you next time.
Great to see you, Tom. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thanks. Talk to you later. See you, Ryan.
See ya.